Were there any key figures that made a significant impact on your development?
Oh, okay, yeah. There's been several. One of the first, I think, was Christopher Wilmarth. Right about the time I got to New York City, or shortly thereafter, there was a memorial show. He committed suicide at age 44, and they had a small show at MoMA, kind of, because he had a lot of collectors that were there, and he's still popular posthumously. I mean, they have these shows at Betty Cunningham, a lot of people turn out. Anyway, I saw that show, and that had a very much a New York kind of quality because it was minimal, and it was after abstract expressionism, but it had that kind of residual kind of emotional power. That's kind of how he was different from, say, Morris or maybe even Sarah, that were more kind of literal in their approach to minimalism. His work had kind of a soul. And I get into trouble. I debate this with my New York painter friends all the time about Rothko or Wilmarth. But I remember seeing this piece of Wilmarth's, and it was he'd been Tony Smith's assistant, so he knew a lot about steel, and it was very much it was a relief. It was a sculptural relief, but it was a painter. It was painting decisions because it was basically one plane in front of another, and the back of it was this kind of steel box with a vacancy in the center. And unlike, say, Donald Judd, who would have just literally stuck a bread pan in there, he covered it over with a sheet of glass, and then he painted that sheet of glass with hydrofluoric acid so that the brushstrokes etched into the glass. And without getting into any kind of metaphysics, I mean, you just couldn't look at this thing and not think that it wasn't inhabited. It was inhabited. There was something in that vacancy. And it wasn't just the mechanics of the materials. Or at least I feel like Wilmarth had articulated it that way at such a pitch that it felt that way, and that was kind of important. So I saw that you could be kind of like this high modernist and still kind of engage in these older, I guess, romantic ideas about, you know, what art was and what its function was. And the thing I like about Wilmarth is I think he sort of followed the poetic model, which, unlike, say, the pop model, is more about a one-to-one kind of engagement, a one-to-one kind of disruption. So that he had a big influence on me very on. And also, like a lot of young artists, I at some point I met Ron Gorchov, and he was very gracious and had me over for dinner. And you know, sometimes just being around artists, they show you a way of being that's important as a model for a young artist. You know, that's something you don't get from magazines or, you know, anything like that. Because the artist, the life is, there's a lot of ups and downs, as with anything, and it takes a very particular kind of resilient character to kind of keep pressing. And I remember one time I went to his studio, Gorchov, and he had this work. I don't think he ever actually showed them. They were works on paper, on handmade paper, and they had that saddle shape. But even more impressive was they were encapsulated in glass that had been blown and custom shaped, so that they had this kind of glass front, not unlike the Wilmarth, over the drawing. I remember saying to Ron at the time, I was like, I've never seen anything like this before. And he said, I know you haven't. And that's kind of a lesson too, you know.